So what's interesting about trading, obviously, is the golden rule in trading is to run profits and cut losses. And yet we know that most traders find that very difficult to do. So when we look at the research in behavioural finance, for example, what we see is that people have a tendency to actually do completely the opposite. So the way the brain is hardwired is not the way we need to think in trading. And that when people are in a situation of gain, they actually become risk averse. So the tendency is to cut profits. And when they're actually in a situation of loss, the tendency is to become risk seeking. So within the brain, we've got this kind of tendency built in. So that gives us one bias. On the downside, obviously, when people are trying to take a loss, we've also got loss aversion, which is a factor. So people are naturally averse to taking losses. Culturally, no one likes to lose either. So we've got a whole sort of behavioural tendencies and hardwiring, which is completely the opposite to what we need to do in trading. And what's important, I think, for traders to realise is to understand that that's the tendency we've got, and recognising that's really important. And then how you then manage your risk, how much risk you take, and the size of your positions, then has a big factor on whether it becomes even more difficult or it becomes slightly easier to run your profits or cut your losses. So, yeah, people often say it can be, there's things that are difficult to follow, probably harder to follow than a set of trading rules. What makes following trading rules difficult? Well, one of the primary things is that when you're trading in the markets, we've got a large amount of uncertainty. There's large factors that are outside of our control. And then the third element, which kind of gets thrown into the equation, is replacing financial risk in the market. So we've got uncertainty, uncontrollability, and financial risk. And that creates kind of an internal environment within us, which makes it very difficult to just follow our rules. We'd like to think that people, we know what to do, and that's kind of one part of trading. The reality is actually doing what we know is not that easy, so it's what we call the psychological gap. And I say it's primarily because of the environment we're in. People don't cope that well generally with risk and uncertainty, and the psychology, the mindset, the fears, the anxieties, the worry, regret, all these emotions can cloud our decision-making process, and that makes it very difficult. So it's interesting because obviously every time we make a decision, a lot of that decision is being biased by what's happened previously. So it could be the last trade, it could be the last 2 or 3 trades, it could be last week, last month, it could even be last year. But what happens to us in the past stays in the mind at some level. They can form as beliefs, so they can become a neurological imprint in the brain. They can just be memories and associations, and they operate at an unconscious level, so they're there, but we don't always know how they're affecting us. So one of the big skills for a trader is to develop self-awareness, is to develop the awareness of, at this moment right now, what's affecting me. And 2 things I think are really useful for doing that. Firstly is by reflecting on your trading performance, so having a trading log or a journal, where in there you can look at your thinking processes, your emotions, any behaviours and habits that might be affecting your decisions, and looking back over time, looking for patterns as to what might be affecting your decisions. But I think probably one of the most exciting things that I've come across more recently is the concept of mindfulness training, which is a training approach using sort of meditation type training to develop your ability to notice what's going on in the moment right now. And what we know from research in neuroscience is that where people practice mindfulness, they develop a very good ability to have that moment-to-moment awareness. It's called having the impartial spectator. So being aware of what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what you're doing right now, but also having an awareness of what impulses and urges you might be having, and how things from the past, so beliefs and assumptions, might be impacting your decisions right now.